Breaking now at 4 after several votes and amendments and 15 hours of testimony, Georgia lawmakers just passed tort reform today.
Atlanta News First political reporter Doug Reardon is live at the state capitol. So, Doug, this bill will overhaul the state's litigation system, impacting anyone who walks into a civil courtroom.
Right, and if you're on either side of any civil lawsuit, this is going to, in a word, change how the game is played in the courtroom. It's going to make it a lot harder to sue businesses. It's also going to make it a lot harder to win those huge judgments that you hear about sometimes in the multi-millions of dollars. Whether or not that's a good thing kind of depends on who you ask here. One day after it passed the House, Senate Bill 68 cleared the Senate and will now make its final stop on the governor's desk. In theory, tort reform would decrease insurance rates for businesses who say they're constantly having to pay out big settlements on frivolous lawsuits. Governor Kemp said the fix make it harder to sue them.
But if we can get costs just to go up 3 or 4% a year instead of 20 or 30 like people are facing, that would be monumental in my eyes.
Kemp called tort reform his #1 priority even before this legislative session started. Friday, he fought back on criticism that the bill doesn't actually force insurers to lower their rates. But Kemp said frivolous lawsuits won't be an excuse for that now.
Years ahead, it's going to give us a better look when insurance companies are trying to raise rates or adjust rates. We'll be able to see if that's actually justified or not.
But those who opposed the bill, mostly Democrats, said lawsuits keep businesses in check.
It has always been that if you are going to invite the citizenry onto your property, you have a duty to keep it safe. And here we see that duty being cut.
While an amendment to the bill made it easier for survivors of sex trafficking to sue for their abuse, other victims of violent crime, sexual assault, or child or elder abuse weren't given the same leniency.
Sex trafficking? Terrible. But why is that the only crime that deserves to be able?
And unlike most other bills, this will become law the very second that Governor Brian Kemp signs it. We expect that to happen sometime early next week. At the state capitol, Doug Reardon, Atlanta News First.
One of the main concerns about this bill passing is that there's no guarantee that insurance premiums will go down for not only businesses, but for all of us.
Atlanta News First investigator Anastasia Almos has been digging into the complex issues surrounding these laws, but also the insurance costs.
That's right. Just as Doug was saying, one of the biggest claims was that insurance companies are paying out massive settlements and verdicts for injuries regardless of fault. For example, in Atlanta, CVS and their insurance company just had to pay out $43 million to a man shot and injured in their parking lot. Now, this bill in part strengthens laws for that type of case, what's called premises liability. And as we got closer to this bill passing, I started tracking some of these cases filed in courts through a website that not all courthouses report to, but we do see that Chatham, Clayton, and Gwinnett counties do consistently report there. So looking at cases filed under the premises liability law in those state courts, you see a big spike here. March, we saw a spike at 63 cases filed. And looking at the days, what you're seeing right here, that uptick of 9, we saw yesterday before the House voted, and then 30 ahead of the Senate vote today. We are seeing many of those cases filed in Chatham County. And these are all cases that stand under current laws, which means consumers and businesses may not see any impact to insurance costs for a few years. Now, we've asked Georgia's Insurance Commissioner John King to sit down with us and explain how he plans to regulate these costs. As soon as that happens, I'll be right back here to share it with you. I'm Anastasia Almos, Atlanta News First investigates.